Good evening. Welcome to Satellite Showtime. This program is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, including Luxor North America, Qualtronics Incorporated, and STV Magazine. I'm Pat Olson. We appreciate your phone calls telling us how you appreciate our program, and we were wondering if you could please go one step further by calling our corporate sponsors and telling them thank you for their financial support, without which we could not continue to bring to you Satellite Showtime. Our corporate sponsors again, Luxor North America, STV Magazine, and Qualtronics Incorporated. Do we ever have an information-packed show for you this evening? If you like movies, there's Movie Mania for you with the Madman from Manhattan, Ed Hulse, and that's at the end of our show. Also, Pat Porter will explain to you how the satellites work with his Insight Out segment. But first, we bring you this evening's Space Track, our second weekly exclusive news report from space about the news that could affect you in our industry.
Good evening, and welcome to Space Track, bringing you news and information from your trade association in Washington, D.C. I'm Robin Neidert of Brown & Finn, and with me this evening is Fred Finn, also of Brown & Finn, the firm that is counsel to space. This evening, Fred and I are going to discuss a problem which is becoming increasingly widespread and troublesome for Earth station dealers and users alike: adverse zoning regulations. They're cropping up with increasing regularity in all areas across the nation. Fred, can you start off by giving us some background on how and why zoning regulations are being applied to Earth station installations?
I'd be happy to, Robin. I'd first of all like to say it's a pleasure for me to be on Satellite Showtime. I'm a frequent viewer through my own home satellite antenna. Zoning problems and the issue of zoning it's very much the power of the zoning board is very much the same type of power that prevents, for example, putting a bar or a restaurant next to your residential neighborhood. It is based on the police power in the Constitution, which is the power to regulate for purposes of health, safety, and to a limited extent aesthetic objectives.
Why now? We haven't heard anything about these zoning regulations except for maybe the past year, 18 months.
Well, for the first 3 years of the industry's growth, some 95% of the earth stations that were put in place in very rural areas. And in rural areas, of course, there's very little zoning. Now with the advancing of the industry into the suburbs and into the urban areas, we've seen much more of an interest by local communities in regulating these antennas.
I see. So it sounds like we can look forward to more regulation as time goes on, or more interest by the localities in these earth station installations.
I'm afraid that's true, and I think that we've seen that certainly in the last year when the number of calls that have come into Space's office have multiplied dramatically.
Well, what type of ordinances are we seeing? Are they all the same thing? Are they different?
The types of ordinances we're seeing are as diverse as the minds of man and woman, may I say.
That sounds dangerous, Fred.
We have seen ordinances that say you can have a satellite antenna anywhere on your property so long as it's no larger than 36 inches in diameter. We've seen an ordinance that said we have a setback requirement in this community, 10 feet setback for every 1 foot of dish diameter. That means with a 10-foot dish, it's a 100-foot setback requirement. Most of the lots in that area are quarter-acre lots, so you can see that as a practical matter that amounts to a complete ban. In Chicago, there's an ordinance that declares satellite earth stations to be planned developments, requiring you to go through more or less the same type of procedure that a shopping center has to go to get approval.
I see. Well, with this dramatic increase in zoning problems, what has Space done to meet the problem?
Well, early on, Space adopted a three-pronged approach, thinking that this is a problem that had to be dealt with on many different levels. The first level was on education, and what we did was put together a rather lengthy book giving advice as to common sense types of approaches for dealing with zoning boards. In addition, there's a compendium of some 200 cases from around the country on zoning-related issues, and also 2 model zoning ordinances. That's the Home Satellite Earth Station Zoning Book that's published by Space, and if you do not have it and you're a dealer or an owner who's contemplating who thinks that they might have a problem in the zoning area, I strongly urge you to get it from Space.
You mentioned education. Have preventative actions by dealers been effective in this area?
Absolutely. One of the most important things, I think, for any dealer to do is to, number one, to know his or her zoning board and to educate them. We've found that in many, many situations, the motivation of the zoning board may not be so much that the cable industry is behind it or somebody doesn't like the way antennas look. The motivation for a bad ordinance may be just the simple fact that the board does not understand how the technology works. They do not understand, for example, that you need a direct line of sight between the satellite antenna and the satellite. A tree in the way won't work. And a lot of zoning ordinances that were bad, that amounted to a complete bans, have been based upon lack of knowledge. So I think that's a very important factor.
Would the home satellite earth station book be something that a dealer would want to make available to local zoning officials to give them some idea about satellite earth station operations? Absolutely.
I think that's a very good idea, and we have found that a number of communities around the country have looked at the book, learned from it, and actually taken the ordinance and adapted it to their own situations in that community, and have come up with something that everybody can live with.
That sounds like it's been most effective. Well, what advice would you give to a dealer who gets word or reads about an adverse zoning regulation that's being proposed in his or her community?
Well, I think the first thing that should be done is to get the facts straight, because unless you really know what's going on, you can call up an attorney, you can call up Space, and we can't really do much good for you. Get the facts. If there's an ordinance that's being proposed, get a copy of it. You can get that usually from the town clerk or the town attorney's office. Take a look at it. Send it to Space. If you're a Space member, we'll take a look at it and advise you on it. We've sent out some 600 or 700 letters in the last 2 or 3 years on zoning ordinances. Often, they've been successful in getting communities turned around and educated to what the problems are.
I see. You mentioned the space rulemaking at the FCC. What are the prospects on that? Is that going to give any relief to the zoning problem?
Yes, I think it will. Let me go back a little bit. The third prong of the approach that we had, which was education and legal assistance, was trying to obtain some help from the FCC or Congress. We looked at the problems that the amateur radio people had had, and they've been fighting this battle, after all, for some 30 or 40 years longer than we have, and found that many of the cases had gone against them, not because they were bad attorneys, they're excellent attorneys, but because the FCC really had not made a definitive statement on what the federal interest was in the area of amateur radio antennas or in the area of satellite. And we went to the FCC in the summer of 1984, filed a petition with them, brought to their attention 12 of the ordinances, which were pretty much standard of the more difficult types of ordinances from around the country that we were facing. Urged them to take action to preempt in this area. In other words, to set the standard of what the federal interest is. And they have taken the first step in that in this spring. Senator Goldwater introduced S35, which was a resolution urging the FCC to take prompt action on that. More recently, some 10 senators have written a letter to the FCC Chairman Fowler urging him to take action. We think that, that things will be scheduled for sometime in November. We're hopeful of a positive outcome. It is a tough battle. We have several hundred cities who are on the opposite sides of this issue. Some cities are not so opposed. They just want some clarification of the federal interest in this area, but other cities have taken an opposition to it. So we're in the midst of that battle. We think that the FCC is going to make a decision. We think it'll be positive sometime around the last week in November, in time for all satellite earth station dealers to have something for Thanksgiving and something to be thankful about.
It certainly sounds like if this gets passed by the FCC, it will help the dealer in their battles around the country. So to sum up what Fred has told us today, education is extremely important. Get the word out there. Talk to your local zoning officials. If you have a problem, call Space. Send your ordinances to Space. And maybe by Thanksgiving there'll be some relief from the FCC. Would you like to add anything else, Fred?
No, I think that's about it.
Thank you for joining us, Fred. We have a few announcements here on some upcoming events. October 25 through 27, Space dealer certification courses will be uplinked to locations around the country. On the 25th, we have antenna installation. On the 26th, how to market. On the 27th, how to run a small business for profit. Call Space for details. And October 29th, don't forget, is Satellite Earth Station Day. Come to Washington if you can. Take your senators and congressmen down to see Earth stations that'll be set up on Capitol Hill. Call Space or Brown and Finn if you can attend. Next week on Space Track, scrambling, the players, the stakes. Join us.
In last week's Space Track report, Chuck Hewitt and Rick Brown said it's more important than ever to write to your congressional representatives asking them to support pro-satellite industry legislation.
Write your congressman. Ask your congressman to support H.R. 1840, which is the Tozan bill, and H.R. 1769, which is the Judd Gregg bill, which calls for a 2-year moratorium on scrambling. Both of those are extremely important. That's 1840 and 1769 are the two bills in the House of Representatives, and S. 1618 is the Senate bill.
Last week we announced to you that Satellite Showtime will be live from Washington, D.C. October 22nd. Well, this week we amend that announcement. Our live program will be moved back to October 29th, which is Satellite Earth Station Day in Washington, D.C. Space representatives will be joining us live at a studio in our nation's capital, and you'll have a chance to call in and talk to your industry leaders. That's in 3 weeks, October 29th, our live program of Satellite Showtime. In the meantime, we will bring you exclusive Space Track reports from space, news of the latest industry issues that could affect you. In other industry news tonight, hopes for another pro-satellite industry bill in the Senate. Right now, there are 2 pro-industry bills in the U.S. House of Representatives. They are H.R. 1769, a companion bill in the Senate. GRIP also has high hopes that in the very near future, hearings will be held on H.R. 1769 and H.R. 1840 in the House. And here's an update on the recent news about the U.S. Justice Department's investigation of the cable industry. STV magazine editor Chris Schultheis observed in the multi-channel news that the Antitrust Division of the Justice Department has written to key cable operators, programmers, and Cable Association executives asking them not to destroy any papers about efforts to scramble and market their signals to TVRO owners. The letter to the cable people and programmers said the Justice Department is investigating these efforts to see whether they constitute illegal restraints of trade. The investigation centers on 2 issues. 1, whether cable operators were violating antitrust laws by using their market power to force programmers to scramble, and 2, whether programmers violated antitrust laws by gathering together to discuss scrambling. Coming up on this evening's Satellite Showtime, the Madman from Manhattan debuts with Movie Mania. That's coming up later. But first, our man from Texas, Pat Porter, talks about today's exciting technology. Stay tuned.
The Luxor 9900 knows where all the satellites are, all about stereo hi-fi sound. All you need to know is what show you want to watch. Yes, Luxor has unified satellite, video, audio, and computer technology in a single integrated home satellite television system. So advanced, it's as easy to operate as an ordinary TV. Simple, clear, and color-coded. Up to 36 satellite locations can be programmed for instant recall. Every channel on every satellite is individually factory programmed prior to delivery. All audio and video information is ready for recall automatically. 5 audio modes, factory programmed to individual transponders, deliver the right sound system automatically when a channel is selected. It's all yours with the Luxor 9900, the intelligent satellite system.
The Star King Surveyor from Gilmax, the professional site survey instrument installers need. Takes just 5 minutes to set up, eliminates guesswork, and avoids installations that don't quite clear a tree or obstruction. With Star King, you can be sure before you start. Save time, money, and labor. Just $149 plus $6 shipping handling. Special pricing on 6 or more. Star King by Gilmax. Phone 205-837-4128 or 205-837-9088.
The Trans 10 by Qualtronics. This eye-appealing transparent antenna has passed the stringent test of the McDonnell Douglas Corporation. It's approved for 2-degree spacing. In the words of McDonnell Douglas, the performance of the Trans 10 is equal to or greater than that of other antennas of similar size and construction. Not only does the Trans 10 perform, it's also covered by a 5-year limited warranty, and it's easy to look at. Its baked acrylic thermoset black finish gives it a low luster appeal. Independent tests have indicated that the Trans 10 will withstand wind velocities up to 90 miles per hour. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics, high in performance and strength, UPS shippable anywhere in the United States, an antenna for every season.
Welcome back. Last week, we brought to you our first Missing Child segment on Satellite Showtime. Now it's time for our second. Our missing child this week is Aona Marie Evans. She's 11 years old and has been missing since July 1st, 1985. She has pierced ears and a small scar under her right eye. Her father has custody of her in Silver Lake, Washington, but she became missing when her mother took her for a 1-month visit this summer. It is believed mother and child may possibly be in the San Bernardino, California area. If you have any information about Aona's whereabouts or about her disappearance, you are asked to contact the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department in Kelso, Washington, or the Missing Children Help Center in Tampa, Florida. The number there is toll-free, 800-USA-KIDS, or in Florida, 813-623-KIDS. Again, that toll-free number is 800-USA-KIDS. If you're eager to attend another satellite industry trade show, there are 2 coming right up. October 11th through the 13th is the Eastern Home Electronics Satellite Dish Video Expo in Orlando, Florida. For information about that, you can call 602-581-0188. And October 15th through the 17th is the 7th Annual Satellite Communications Users Conference in New Orleans. The phone number for that is 303-694-1522, and you can ask for Kathy Kreiner. If you've watched our program at all for the last couple of months, you've been learning about installing home satellite systems. Shelburne Films of Reedsville, Ohio has provided information about this. Last week on our Shelburne Films segments, we got as far as finding true north. Now we should be tracking the belt. Here's our segment.
To check the tracking, crank the dish up and locate each satellite in turn, comparing the signal strength of each. If certain satellites appear to be noticeably weaker than others, you've got a tracking problem. Any of these 3 adjustments, if off, could cause mistracking. Also, it could be a crooked mount or a pole that is not plumb. The trick is to pin down which of these is causing our problem. We might suspect that our declination offset angle is wrong. Too little declination results in a shallow tracking path, while too much declination gives you too deep a path. If you are tracking only one end of the belt, your north-south or elevation could be off. Mark where all points of adjustment are now set. Then begin making minor adjustments to the declination angle or wherever you suspect the problem lies. Check between the highest and lowest satellites or through the entire belt until it's right. Remember, adjust elevation only on a high satellite and north-south only on a low satellite. Also remember that even minute changes to the declination adjustment can make a big difference in our tracking. You might end up with things worse than when you started. That's why we marked our starting point. You might even have to go back to the very beginning. And making all these fine adjustments is kind of hard just watching the sparklies. What you need is a good meter. You can use almost any basic multimeter if you have an RF head or a device called a carrier level detector to insert in the line between the down converter and receiver. Or you can use one of the many specialized meters available. These meters provide a degree of accuracy not possible by watching the picture or the panel meter on your receiver. With a good meter, you can pull out that last tenth of a dB on every adjustment. Once we've got our tracking exactly where we want it, it's time to tighten down the north-south adjustment and lock it in place. Wind can put a great stress on this point. The best way to lock down the north-south permanently is by drilling through both pipes and inserting a bolt clear through. Another way is to grind your bolts to a point or use other special locking types.
Our next segment from Shelburne Films will show us how to connect the antenna to the receiver inside. We were planning to have Mike Gustafson review the Drake ESR 424 receiver this week, but we've decided to move that segment back 1 week. So you can look forward to seeing Mike's next product review in a week. Our man from Texas, Pat Porter, tonight is going to talk about the satellites, C-band, KU band, and a whole lot more. Here's his Insight Out segment.
Thank you, Pat, and welcome to another segment of Insight Out. I'm Pat Porter, Skeet and Leela's boy, from Big Spring, Texas. I'm the marketing manager for Starcom Distributing Company with offices in Big Spring, Texas, Oklahoma City, Jefferson City, Missouri, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Mission. One of the things that I want to talk to you about tonight, one of the reasons I'm kind of like a swamp owl. The reason they look smart is because they don't know how to look scared. And I'm just going to say to you tonight, don't be nervous, sitting there at home in front of your TV set watching me, because I'm plenty nervous for both of us. I want to ask you something. I heard a comedian the other night on TV, and he said, did you ever buy a cured ham and wonder what it had? You know, we're all in a rut. A lot of times this fellow's wife, when she would start to prepare a ham, she'd cut the end of it off. And one day the guy said, man, darling, said, why do you cut the end off that ham? And she said, because my mother did. He said, that's interesting. I wonder why she cut the end off the ham. She said, I'll find out. So she called up her mother and she said, Mother, why do you cut the end off of your ham before you cook it? And she said, because my mother did. Her mother, 89 years old, still in the community, so she picked up the phone and she said, Grandmother, why do you cut the end off a ham before you cook it? And she said, because I had a little short pan. And that's it. We're all creatures of habit. We get in a habit and we get in a rut. Let me show you. Do this right now. Take both hands and put them together just like that. Now, do exactly the same thing. Take them apart, only put the other finger on top. Doesn't it feel funny? Sure it does. Feels like you're holding hands with a stranger. And the reason is because we're all creatures of habit. Everyone does this the same way every time. You try it. Talking about habits, you know, that's one thing I like about this business. Just about the time something becomes an industry standard, something comes along to change it. We get lots of cards and letters in here. By the way, if you'd like to write Insight or Satellite Showtime, let me give you that address. Nova Video Productions, Box 637, Highway 14 East, Richland Center, Wisconsin, and that zip is 53581. I'll repeat that later on in the show. I'm not like one of the guys that says send your money in. That's no problem, but we would like to have your letters with suggestions on things that you'd like to see on Insight Out. I said that nothing stays the same. We're to an odd thing. It's just like I say, if it's not one thing, it's another. How many of you understand and know what C-band and KU band is? This issue of Satellite TV Preview Magazine, one of the fine sponsors on Satellite Showtime, right here on page 5, tells about the C-band and KU-band satellites. What is C-band? C-band is the band segment between 3.7 gigahertz and 4.2 gigahertz. Megahertz, gigahertz, where does it hurt? What's a gigahertz, Pat? A gigahertz or gigahertz are billions, billions of cycles per second. Very small. That's where they get the name microwave. 4 gigahertz, 4 billion cycles per second. That little wave is about 3 inches tall. That's why they can come the long distance from the satellite, 22,300 miles away, to Earth with only 5 watts of power. Now, there is a little bit of a problem. 4 gigahertz, 3.7 to 4.2, C-band, so we all know what we're talking about, is a telecommunications frequency. A lot of you have run into a thing called terrestrial interference, and we'll get into that on a later segment of Inside Out. That's because the phone companies and a lot of data transmission line of sight is on this same frequency, and it interferes. We can't turn up the power on the satellite or it'll start to interfere with phone transmissions. Now on up in the spectrum at 12 gigahertz, 12 billion cycles per second, otherwise known as KU band, then there is a transmission frequency there that is dedicated entirely to satellite, no terrestrial interference. To give you an idea, the feed assembly on your dish is probably, oh, so big, about 8 inches, 8 to 9 inches. A 12 gigahertz feed is only about that big. They will be able to use 3-foot dishes because they can transmit at 20 to 40 watts of power. But their time hasn't yet come, but it's on its way. In this issue of Satellite TV Preview Magazine, here are KU band satellites. SSB-3, which will carry NBC feeds, and Annex C. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 others that are not operational yet, but they're on their way. What do I do now? You don't have to do anything just yet, but in the future, you'll be able to retrofit or add to your present system. Some receivers are 12 gigahertz, 4 gigahertz, C-band, KU-band compatible right now. There are retrofit items on the market that'll be available very shortly. I'm talking about in weeks or days rather than months, that will enable you to use your present dish and get both C-band and KU-band feeds. For example, you got a 10-foot dish and you only need a 3-foot dish, but that's all right because you don't use all of the available reflective power of the dish. It's just another way to enhance this industry. If you'd like more information on 12 gigahertz, what's there, what's coming, if you'd send your cards and letters to Pat Porter, Skeet and Leela's boy, well, that's all right. Just send them to Pat Porter. They'll know which one it is. Inside Out, Nova Video Productions, Box 637, Highway 14 East, Richland Center, Wisconsin, and that zip is 53581. Folks, it's been my pleasure to be with you again tonight. I appreciate your time and effort to tune me in. If there's anything I can do to help, you get a hold of Nova Video Productions, and we'll put that segment on the next segment of Inside Out with Pat Porter. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Ed Hulse steps in with Movie Mania later on Satellite Showtime. But first, the Caltronics video newsletter with Joe Kelch. Stay tuned.
Satellite TV Preview is the best thing next to your satellite dish. With all those programs now at your fingertips, you won't want to miss a thing. Satellite Preview lists over 100 transponders in an easy-to-read weekly grid schedule. It has a daily list of movies, specials, and sports, plus a list of sports by event. Call and subscribe now for only $47 for 52 issues and save $31 off the newsstand price. Or call for a free sample copy. Dealers, we also have a special offer for you. Call 800-826-0735. Visa and MasterCard accepted. Satellite TV Preview, the best thing next to television.
Welcome to the world of satellite TV opportunities, the marketing techniques magazine for satellite television that reviews the latest technology and introduces you to people you should know.
Satellite TV Opportunities is the marketing techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Call today for your subscription to success, 1-800-922-2812, Satellite TV Opportunities magazine.
Hello, it's time for Caltronics Video Newsletter. Tonight we want to start off with an urgent plea for you to have a paper and pencil handy, because we're going to be bringing you phone numbers that will tie you in with products that you want to know more about. The numbers for Caltronics tonight are simply these: 800-826-CALL, K-A-U-L, for those of you throughout the United States, with these exceptions. In Wisconsin here, it's 800-826-NOVA, N-O-V-A, and all other areas outside this country, 608-647-8902. You know, Caltronics is proud to be a distributor of fine Luxor products. Here's our chance to learn more about Luxor itself. Randall Harmon of Luxor. Randall, you're a National Sales and Marketing Manager, and you have been for, well, 4.5, 5 months?
A long 5 months, Joe.
In this industry it is. We wanted to take the opportunity here on Satellite Showtime to find out a little bit about your background, and especially about the background of the company that you are representing, Luxor.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, Joe. Basically, I was a microcomputer background, worked with a company out of Atlanta, Georgia, and had the opportunity of meeting Hans Guiner, the president of Luxor, approximately 5-6 months ago. And we entertained the possibilities of employment with Luxor. So first thing I did was I wanted to check out a little bit about Luxor before I moved my family across country from Atlanta to Bellevue. And what I was able to find out, Joe, was what I perceived to be a very long-term company. They date back to 1923, based out of Sweden. And satellites, TVRO is just a small portion of Luxor AB. They have over $2.5 billion in sales, 33,000 employees nationwide, and so it's a company that's here for the duration, which obviously was, I felt, in my best interest.
It certainly is. That's impressive. They are covering much of northern Europe then with their products?
Yeah, they're throughout Europe. I think they have 33 facilities throughout the Western European market. Handle, case in point, all the electronics for Volvo and Saab. IBM high-res monitors. They supply them for all their computers, both in the United States and over in Europe. So it's a very diverse company.
A tremendous background, and the only thing I can think of is that they are in this to stay, in this industry.
This is true.
And they have tremendous, not only personal resources, but financial.
Yes, I agree with that, and it's something I wanted to feel comfortable with. They're not in the North American market for the short term. They're here to stay. No matter what downturns the industry may confront, Luxor's here for the duration.
Well, I think that'll be an eventuality that won't happen because I think the industry is going that way.
Oh, it's going in the right direction, you bet.
We'll learn more about Luxor and its line of products next week when Randall returns. Now a comment about the Price is Right and Qualtronics. The Trans 10 with the Luxor electronic package was a prize on the show, and here's how it looked.
And to make all your programming picture perfect, this new satellite dish and receiver. Qualtronics top-of-the-line see-through antenna and search and find package allows you to view hundreds of programs from the satellites from Qualtronics. And this showcase can be yours if the price is right.
That system was not run that day, but they'll have another chance November 20th. Now I'd like to have you give a listen to a great product, the Surge Protector.
Your electronic equipment needs protection from lightning and high voltage surges. Surge Free gives you that protection, ideal for industrial, residential, and commercial use. Just plug it into any 120 volt outlet and it protects your computers, appliances, and electronics, and has noise suppression capability. Rated at 15 amp 125 volt, the Surge Free has maximum spike voltage of 4500, clamping spike voltage of 180, and maximum spike current of 1200 amps. Surge Free with its 1-year warranty is just $34.95 retail. Order now.
Just this week we had an opportunity to take a little tour of the Lone Rock plant where Qualtronics mesh antenna systems are made. New construction is underway there, and we also had a chance to see the vital machine, the mesh cutter, which is a vital part of the mesh production of the Trans series. You know, we're all proud of the Trans family here at Qualtronics. That's the 6, the 8-foot, the 6-foot, the 8-foot, and the 10-foot, and also the 10X. Now the 10X is the 12-rib design. Let's take a look.
The Trans 10 12-rib design by Qualtronics. This beautifully designed and crafted transparent antenna is setting the industry on its ear. With the latest in antenna technology, the Trans 10 12-rib has strength, accuracy, and beauty at a price you won't believe until you experience the quality and savings yourself. Baked acrylic, thermoset black finish, super strength rib, hub, and rim. Qualtronics means quality, and the Trans 10 12-rib lives up to the Qualtronic tradition.
And the original of the Trans series, the Trans 10. We also want you to take a look at that. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics, quality, performance, and strength, and all at a highly competitive price. Engineered for maximum durability and reflective surface, also extremely easy to look at. Baked acrylic, thermoset black finish, low luster appeal. A parabolically formed hub, prime steel, and a solid 14.5 inches in diameter. Ribs of superior strength tubular 16-gauge steel encased in polytrans vinyl. UPS shippable anywhere in this country. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics. High performance and strength. Tested and approved to withstand wind velocities up to 90 miles an hour and approved for 2-degree spacing by the McDonnell Douglas Corporation. Yes, the Trans 10 with a limited 5-year warranty is your best buy of all mesh antennas on the market. The Trans 10, the antenna for every season. Our man from Texas, Pat Porter, tells us about Quick Pro.
I'm here this evening for Quick Pro Industries. Quick Pro Industries filled a niche in the market that was really needed. One of the hardest things on satellite television systems is moisture. And these folks have come out with a way to keep moisture out and keep condensation out. You see, it's very difficult to seal a component against moisture because when you seal it, then you're faced with the problem of condensation. Any moisture is hard on any component in the satellite system. Quick Pro has come up with LNA covers, with motor drive covers, with tube bellows. And these things really do keep out the moisture because they have a patented vent to let out excess moisture. This vent does another thing. It actually creates a patented chimney effect that pulls air through there and keeps the LNA temperature lower than it would be without a cover. Another product that QuickPro has produced is a quick set pole, but it's a clamp that fits around the pole, and then you use a stake that drives 4 different ways to set that in concrete, set it. That way the dealer, and as you know, Mr. Dealer, time is money, you only have to come back, you only have to make 1 trip because that pole is ready to set in an hour. What you do, you dig a hole, set your pole, set this quick clamp around it, then put in sackcrete, not cement, don't have to wait for it to set or anything, wet it, and then replace the sod. Makes it a really neat looking installation, and you're ready to go as soon as you get it in the ground. If you have any questions, call QuickPro, Ashland, Ohio. The phone numbers are 800-821-7384. In Ohio, the number is area code 419-289-2228. Call today.
See you next week, same time, same station for Coltronics Video Newsletter.
Thank you, Joe. Don't turn that dial. Movie Mania is next on Satellite Showtime.
The Luxor Mark II, a new generation of electronic excellence. The Mark II is a block satellite receiver system. It offers independent channel selection for multiple TV sets from a single antenna. In the home, for neighbors to share, in hotels, apartment, offices, and for licensed SMA TV redistribution to the entire community. The Mark II by Luxor does it all. You receive the best signal, the highest possible performance with Dolby high fidelity sound. Other features include the individually programmed audio, AFC automatic fine-tuning controls, all on the 24 programmable channels. An infrared handheld remote will give complete control over the channel selection on any satellite. It's all so easy with Luxor Mark II. See it and then enjoy it. The Mark II does it all.
Here's a site survey instrument for professional installation. Star King Surveyor sets up in 5 minutes and takes the guesswork out of installations. Star King features pinpoint accuracy, highest quality, non-corrosive hardware, and durability. Star King saves time, money, and needless retrenching. Includes a handy vinyl carrying case and coordinates guides. Just $149 plus $6 shipping handling. Special pricing on 6 or more. Order now. Gilmax.
Tonight, we are happy to introduce the madman from Manhattan, Ed Hulse, with Movie Mania.
Thank you very much, Pat Olson, and hello and welcome to another segment of Movie Mania. My name again is Ed Hulse, and I want to thank all the nice folks at Nova Video Productions for giving us an opportunity to come with you and give you a few minutes of our craziness. For those of you who are not familiar with the segment, Movie Mania began in 1980 as a movie review show in New York on Manhattan Cable TV, and we went from really nothingness to real cult status. And before long, during the 5-year run of the show, I had people who would come up to me in the street, accost me in the subways, which of course is not particularly great. But at any rate, it was a very Manhattan type of TV show. And now, thanks to Nova Video, we are moving to a national satellite hookup. And what we would like to do here and in future episodes of Movie Mania is to give you folks an idea of some of the movies that you might want to watch or stay away from that are coming to you via the birds and some of our prominent cable programmers. This month there are a lot of pictures. We have the real gamut from the very good to the very bad. And some of them we really urge you to see at all costs, no matter what it takes. And that is, you know, if you have to go out and get a descrambler to see it, go out and do it, don't wait. Others, on the other hand, forget about it. We will tell you, we're not going to mince words here. We're not going to fool around. If we say it's good, it's good. If we say it's bad, forget it. Don't pay any attention to any other reviewers that you may have seen or heard. Don't pay any other attention to what you read in your TV guides or your cable guides. This is the scoop. We're telling you the straight story. Don't forget it. At any rate, most of the big movies are on HBO and Cinemax this month. The first one that I'd like to recommend, although this is not a unqualified recommendation, this is a qualified recommendation, Brian De Palma's Body Double. You may remember that this came out earlier in the year to very, very mixed reviews and a great deal of controversial furor in the press because it was felt to be an extremely violent film degrading to women. And it is both of those things. It's very violent and it's sexist, but I think that the real reason that Body Double made such a stink was because it happened to be a major picture that showed very violent deaths of women being chased by psychotic killers. This kind of stuff has been going on in B movies for years now. And the fact of the matter is that most people, most family people particularly, are not going to go to a movie theater to see this kind of thing. Body Double proved that it was a marketable idea for a big budget motion picture. Body Double, for those of you who don't know, is a very, what we call a film noir, which is a very dark, bleak type of serious subject, which involves a young man who finds himself cast into a situation where he is he's suspected of murdering some young women, and he is both pursued by and in pursuit of at least one of these women. The two women who have the primary roles are very, very good. Deborah Shelton, who some of you may have seen on the Dallas TV show, is one of them, and Melanie Griffith is another one. These are very, very good performances, and Body Double is a very, very good movie. It's a thriller, but like we say, it's not for all tastes. There's a particularly grisly murder scene about halfway through the film, and there's some suspense, some real nail-biting suspense, which may be a little too much. It's certainly not something that we'd recommend for children. It is an R-rated film, and not for the weak of stomach either. But if you like good, strong suspense, we would conditionally recommend Body Double. Now that will be on November on HBO and Cinemax. That's a big film for them. The next one, which is going to be on HBO in the month of November, is not quite as good. Bolero, starring Bo Derek. Now this is something that you've also probably heard about. It generated a lot of attention, but mostly in the, along the ilk of Playboy magazine, thanks to Bo Derek, the star. Bolero is another Derek co-production. Bo does the producing and the acting. Her husband, John Derek, does the writing and the directing. And as a matter of fact, he does the photography as well. In this case, as in Bo's previous outings, especially Tarzan the Ape Man, we have a very nicely photographed film, very nicely produced, lush foreign locations, and as far as the plot is concerned, whew, well, I don't even want to say that the plot stinks. There really isn't much of a plot. The basic plot is that we are to believe Bo Derek is a girl who graduates from a boarding school in Europe, and her primary objective, as the film opens, is to lose her virginity. Now, this is scarcely something that you're going to hang a 90-minute film on, and unless you really, really are excited by the sight of Bo Derek in a state of undress, and we suspect that some of you might be, but if you're not, there's absolutely nothing in Bolero for you. And even if you are, for that matter, I think that the old snooze meter is going to run about 45 minutes at tops. If you're awake after 45 minutes of Bolero, we really want to compliment you on that. Again, Bolero is the type of film that will probably lose what little appeal it has on the small screen. In a theater, it was very nice. It was, you know, as we say, good photography. That's one thing that Derek can do is wield a camera. As a director, as a writer, as a film editor, but as a cameraman, he's very good. However, a great deal of that will probably be lost on the small screen. And therefore, all you have is Bo in the buff. That's it. And if that's not enough for you, pass it by. Another HBO Cinemax film for the month of November, City Heat, with Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood. Now that's quite a team. And City Heat should have been quite a movie. It doesn't quite make it. We're not really sure. It's a period picture set in the 1930s and shot almost completely on the back lot at Warner Brothers, which is very unusual these days, by the way. Burt and Clint are both charismatic types according to their respective personas. Clint is a tough cop, and he is taciturn, and he is grim, and he's everything that we've always expected of him. And he has basically, he runs the gamut of emotions. He does this, and he does this. And that's pretty much what he does. But he's very good in that context. Bert is also very good doing what he does best. He's charming, he's affable, he's got a flair for the wisecrack, and he jumps around quite a bit. However, something doesn't work. The chemistry doesn't quite make it. As the private detective who's caught in underworld schemes, not of his making, he seems a little bit out of his element, and Eastwood really tries to pull the picture together. He has a much stronger character, although oddly enough, even though the character itself is strong, the scripting is weak. And for whatever reasons, it doesn't make it. It has a very good supporting cast, including Jane Alexander, who's absolutely a standout as the Burt Reynolds' secretary, who actually has a yen for Clint Eastwood. It was a lot of fun to a certain type of audience. In the theater, it did very well for the people who will go and see any Burt Reynolds movie, any Clint Eastwood movie. However, it didn't pull the other people. It didn't pull the people who, say, are curious about Eastwood's Dirty Harry, so it was not really a box office success. It's done pretty well on home video. But I would say that City Heat, for those of you who are interested in killing a pleasant evening, you want to get some popcorn, bring some Snickers bars over, bring the kids around, not a bad choice. Dune is something else that's going to be on HBO, and Dune was a very, very big, lavish, really spectacle of a movie. It's based on a classic science fiction novel by Frank R. Herbert, and it was directed by David Lynch, who was a rather enigmatic young filmmaker who's given us films like Eraserhead, which may not have made it out to the hinterlands, but was quite a cult success in the metropolitan areas. Dune is the novel to which Star Wars owes quite a lot. It's the story of an entire race looking for a Messiah figure, and there's what Alfred Hitchcock would have called a weenie in the old days, which is a secret element really important to the plot. And in this case, it's an essence of a worm which is found on a particular planet. And everybody has to have this essence of worm to really make out. Now, this is a rather odd element, and we suspect that this, again, is not going to be for everybody else's taste. Dune also is one of those pictures that really, really suffers on the small screen. There are some real panoramic shots, some great special effects that were really designed with the big screen, the theatrical framework in mind. And on TV, it's not going to work quite as well. That, coupled with the fact that it has a very convoluted storyline, is going to make Dune something that you may not be all that interested in. You may find it very, very tough to follow. So again, that's the type of thing that I'm going to recommend on a qualified basis. By the way, Dune, when I originally saw it in the theater, it's the only movie I've ever been to when the theater owner felt pressed upon him the need to circulate printed synopses of the picture so that you could understand the plot. Now, I was never able to figure out how I was supposed to be able to read the synopsis while the movie was going on, so it didn't really help me a lot. But I guess for those people who are interested in keeping score of such things, that might be something that the home viewer could use. Now, the next one, which is going to be on Cinemax in November, is Greystoke. Now, Greystoke was a popular film. It was not what we'd call a mega hit, but it was a rather popular film. It is, for those of you who don't know, or purports to be, I should say, the real story of Tarzan of the Apes as originally written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Well, forget it. Greystoke isn't any closer to the real Tarzan as written by Burroughs than the Johnny Weissmuller movies, the old black and white Johnny Weissmuller movies of MGM were. It's, again, a beautifully filmed motion picture, and it will probably look pretty good on your TV screen. Unfortunately, it is a rambling, slowly paced, introspective, plodding, boring. Well, you get the idea. It's not really something, if you want to see a lot of action and vine swinging, you're not going to get it in this picture. It does have elements of the original Tarzan novels that were not present in any of the other film versions. On the whole, however, it's not a good film, despite the presence of the late Sir Ralph Richardson in really one of his best roles as the old Baron of Greystoke Manor. The guy who plays Tarzan, who, by the way, is never once referred to as Tarzan in the duration of this 2-hour and 20-minute film, is named Christopher Lambert, who is a very interesting young actor, I think of French-Canadian extraction, who was completely miscast as the ape man. So Greystoke, since it is so long and has so many dull stretches, we're not recommending that. The substance isn't really there, and it's not the faithful adaptation that it pretends to be. A few other things to keep in mind, also on Cinemax in November, and also something to be avoided at all costs, is Meatballs 2. Now, those of you who saw Meatballs, the original Meatballs, a few years back, might have remembered that it was a fairly pleasant, if dim-witted, comedy starring Bill Murray as a maniacal summer camp counselor. If he were back in Meatballs 2, the picture might have stood a chance. I say might have. I'm not convinced that it would have, but it might have stood a chance. As it is, there's nobody in Meatballs 2 worth seeing, with the possible exception of a young man named Paul Rubens, who some of us know as Pee Wee Herman. And unless you're a big Pee Wee Herman fan, I would avoid Meatballs. A couple of other things very quickly. HBO, Places in the Heart with Sally Field. Now, I know that this picture got a lot of awards. I know that it was very highly thought of by the critics. But if I see one more picture dealing with the tough woman who's going to save the farm, I don't want to know about it. Just forget about it. I don't want to see it anymore. Same thing for The Razor's Edge, another HBO film starring Bill Murray. If you can take Bill Murray doing Somerset Maugham, you're a better man than I am. This is a picture which, despite being carefully produced, is a complete fiasco. You don't know whether to laugh or cry with Bill Murray. It's a complete shambles. Stay away from that at all costs. That just about wraps it up for this month. We would like to remind you that a lot of the very interesting movies that you're going to see on satellite are not going to come from the major pay services in many cases, but from the super stations and some of the smaller stations. We urge you to watch American Movie Classics, which has some wonderful old films particularly in their lineup. TBS has some real prizes, and even CBN, if you're into things like old westerns and old B pictures, they come up with a lot of real surprises, and we'll tell you about more of those in some succeeding episodes of Movie Mania. So for now, I'd like to sign off. Again, thank Pat Olson and all the people at Nova Video Productions, and we'll see you next month with some more Movie Mania.
Thank you very much, Ed. We'll see you again next month with Movie Mania. That concludes this evening's Satellite Showtime, brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Luxor North America, Caltronics Incorporated, and STV Magazine. Next week, what a show we have in store for you. We'll have another Space Track report, more of Pat Porter, and the long-awaited review of the Drake ESR 424 receiver by Mike Gustafson. In the meantime, you can tune into two other programs about the home satellite industry. They are Boresight, Thursday nights on Satcom 4, Transponder 20, and FM America, every night on Telstar 303, Transponder 18. See you next week. Good night.